Welcome back to the Guardian Film Show, clinging to the coattails of celebrity and always angling for a co-starring role in someone else's drama. The cameras are rolling, the couch has been filled, and this, therefore, counts as Act 1. Release the motion pictures. Ian McKellen is looking for clues as Mr. Holmes.
I came to see you because I want to help people that have weird conditions that they can't afford to fix.
Jessica Biel is seeking reassurance and health insurance in The Troubled Accidental Love. And Scott, son of Clint Eastwood, is hell-bent on mounting a bull and treating the poor creature to the longest ride of its life.
Some bulls are nice like that.
But we begin, as we do most weeks, in a spirit of frat boy indulgence with pool parties and sports cars and the sort of harmless male banter that certain ladies claim to be sexist. We begin specifically with Entourage the movie. Ben Lee sat down with the cast.
Vinny Chase.
Ari Gold!
I hear you got something for me.
My first movie is Studio Head, and boom, I want you to star in it.
Whatever I do next, I also want to direct. Ari.
Does he even know how to direct?
Ari?
Why do you think it seems to annoy some people?
Because those some people didn't get invited to the parties that we're portraying when they were in high school.
No, listen, look, again, what did they think? What did they think we were trying to make? I mean, it's not like we ever pretended to be the Imitation Game. You know, I mean, we wanted to make a fun, film that people could go and enjoy and laugh at. I don't know what. I don't know what.
The audiences are liking it. They're coming out of the theaters enjoying it.
Yeah.
What it had an A minus cinema score. So I mean, as long as the people are enjoying it.
Lighten up, guys. It's not Citizen Kane.
What's wrong?
We got a sex tape.
Oh God.
I'm getting married.
Oh God.
We need more money. Bye.
Oh, God. I gave you $100 million. You agreed to not go over.
Because you said I couldn't direct unless we agreed.
It's like when a girl asks if you want to bang her hot sister. Of course you say no. Neither of you really believes you mean it, though.
What is he doing here?
Am I missing something? Is the movie more misogynistic than the show? I mean, we've been doing the same thing since 2003, and it feels like the people that loved it in 2003 all of a sudden have a problem with it in 2015. So I don't know if somewhere the sentiment has changed, but we're doing the exact same thing. If anything, the characters have grown up. If anything, we were more misogynistic in 2003, 2004 when the New York Times called us the best show on television.
Vince, you take care of more people in Red Cross, huh? I'd like to think they take care of me. It's probably best to think of it that way.
Heartfelt but virtual high fives to my main men on the couch, Peter Bradshaw and Henry Barnes. Peter, I guess it helps if you're a fan of the original HBO series.
Yeah, I mean, that was, as I understand it, originally marketed as kind of a male Sex and the City. I used to watch it a little bit, and every time I almost had a kind of Groundhog Day experience of thinking, okay, I'm ready for the satire now. Okay, I understand. These Entourage guys, they're supposed to clearly have a grotesquely parasitical and tragic existence. Okay, lay it on me. Tell me about the satire now, and it never came.
No.
Basically, it was a kind of unsatire or a-satire. You were supposed to think they were really pretty great.
Yeah, it was Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous.
Yeah, exactly. The only satire, and I'm using the word pretty loosely now, is centred, of course, on Jeremy Piven playing Ari. Now, I'm used to lots of shows where Ari's consciousness spreads the entire thing. The whole thing is about Ari, but it's as if the poison sac of satire is drained off into Ari, and Jeremy Piven kind of gives it his best shot in every scene. He really socks it home, but there's no material for him to work with. There's no dialogue.
No.
If you compare it with anything at all, compare it with 30 Rock or Curb Your Enthusiasm, or indeed The Larry Sanders Show, where Jeremy Piven famously played one of the embittered writers. I mean, those were so much better. I mean, they were so much funnier and smarter, and they had something real to say about celebrity and the LA lifestyle. Entourage just baffles me. I mean, I understand that its sucrose quality is the key to its success. So there's something kind of almost unselfconsciously obnoxious about the film. It just has no idea that it's being incredibly obnoxious all the time.
It's strange, isn't it? With films about groups of guys who are morons, essentially, you have to make them likeable. So the In-Betweeners, for example, for me works because they're idiots. They're lovable idiots that are going to win.
Well,
like
Swingers, your all-time favourite film.
My favourite film, Swingers. But I mean, with swingers, there's a sense of desperation. The thing about swingers is that they're never going to get anywhere. These guys are losers. They know it in their hearts, and they've stared into the abyss, and they're almost accepting it. You know, these guys are winners, and they know it in their hearts, and you hate them for it.
No one likes a winner.
You really hate them for it. It's dreadful, and it's sort of hateful in its treatment of women. I'm sorry to be that guy who bangs on about that, but it's remarkably poorly served. It serves its female characters remarkably badly.
Was it the main female character is the one who's paraded around with her kit off in the Blurred Lines video, isn't it?
Yeah, you've got Emily. I've forgotten her surname.
Ratajkowski.
Yeah.
But you've got her. Then you've got the other main female character who's a nag, and then you've got the woman that he has sex with, and then the other woman that he has sex with, and that's your female complement for this movie. And you know, the cast have said in the interview with Ben that it's not misogynistic. It's showing the world how it really is. That might well be. Hollywood could be that bad. I can't imagine it's quite as heinous as this.
I think that's a complete lie, though. It's not how it really is. There is 1,000 tons of agony behind the eyes of every successful person in Hollywood. It's not just about Ari. I can't believe that all those guys who just have nothing other than sunshine in their lives. It's just nonsense. Even if they did get to hang out with beautiful women all the time, and those beautiful women really made no serious demands on them of any sort, even if you believe that, it's as phony as a $3 bill.
What's up, Ari? What kind of studio are you running around here?
Mark, hey, calm down.
Dude, I'm calm, but you better get excited. I mean, you want everybody around town thinking that this is how you treat your filmmakers.
Right? What's going on?
I am dealing with it.
Yeah, what he said, he's not going to release any more money. Can he do that?
Ari.
He's got issues.
Oh, he doesn't like the movie?
It doesn't matter.
Tell him the truth. Don't be shy.
He doesn't like drama.
More dollars than cents in Entourage. And now for those of a more stately and sedate persuasion, bring out Mr. Holmes, Bill Condon's portrait of the great detective in his dotage, still pondering the riddle of one unsolved last crime.
You are very great detective.
Thank you very much.
Ian McKellen is Sherlock Holmes, pastured off to keep bees by the sea and squired around the garden by his purse-lipped housekeeper and her plucky young son. His powers have faded, his memory is shot. He has one final problem to solve before the curtain comes down. Henry, this is almost structured as a kind of anti-Sherlock Holmes mystery, isn't it? Which is ambitious, but it still left me really wanting a lot more.
Yeah, I mean, it's snoozy stuff, this. It's not bad, it's not terrible, it's just snoozy. It reminds me of being 12 or 13 on a Sunday afternoon. You've got that feeling of fog in your head, and you're feeling a little bit nauseous, and you know the Monday's coming, and then the only thing on telly is Poirot. And this is basically Poirot without a point, really. It's got a lot of lovable elements. It's got Ian McKellen, who's reliably great. Yeah. The character of Sherlock Holmes himself is always fascinating, or is it the character that Dr. Watson has written, as they suggest in this film? Laura Linney's fine, her accent's a bit weird.
It's got very little to do.
It's got very little to do. And, you know, all these things are nice enough. They're gentle, they're enjoyable in their own way, but it is a real snooze fest, this film. It's really quite dull.
I told Watson, if I ever write a story myself, it will be to correct the myriad misconceptions created by his imaginative license.
I have to say, I disagree with Henry in a way. I didn't find it boring. I know what he means. It's a bit of a Werther's original in some ways. But I quite like the idea of a trad Holmes. I mean, we've had the sort of sexified, postmodernified Benedict Cumberbatch and Robert Downey Jr. I think there is certainly room in the market for a trad Sherlock Holmes, and Ian McKellen absolutely looks fantastic. Yeah. Although I would have preferred a straight, non-flashback, straightforward, linear story set in the kind of 1920s or 30s with him in his pomp. As long as it's a clear, strong, interesting and exciting story, that's absolutely no problem at all with me. But I think it's structurally very muddled and flawed. But Ian McKellen is absolutely brilliant in it. He's really very good. You forget what a brilliant, technically accomplished stage actor he is, impersonating a very old man and then suddenly snapping back into life as this lithe, elegant figure darting about London and spying on people. I think it's great stuff. I don't have a problem with it at all.
At the risk of kind of dropping a big spoiler in there, there's sort of several mysteries in there, one of which is about the mystery of the human heart. And the other is whether it's bees or wasps.
Yeah.
And I kind of thought, this is it.
Bees or wasps.
I don't have a problem with that. I mean, it's kind of off the wall.
Maybe that's the kind of case you need in your dotage, you know.
I guess so.
But I mean, the potential bit that could have been interesting was the deconstructing the myth stuff. He's outraged that Watson has created him as a superhero, essentially. He thinks that's complete nonsense. There's also a really interesting thing where he goes to the cinema to see a version of one of his stories made for the movies. And Nicholas Rowe, who plays Sherlock Holmes in that, actually played young Sherlock Holmes in that film from the 80s. So there's a nice kind of meta version of the myth going on in there. But it's never really explored that stuff or
Well, it's
properly
basically
taken
saying
apart.
detective fiction is a lie.
Yeah.
And that people are much more complicated than the Watson / Arthur Conan Doyle books present them as.
And perhaps much more simple and therefore much more boring. So maybe I've talked myself around to liking it after all. Maybe that was the point.
I think there is a tendency, people think, well, with Sherlock Holmes you have to mess about with it. You have to be postmodern, you have to deconstruct it and all the rest of it. And this film's attempt to deconstruct it is sort of messing it all up, really. I personally don't think you have to deconstruct it that much. I think you let the audience deconstruct it and tell it straight, to be honest with you, and I think that would be fine.
One day into the room came a young man in newly pressed, albeit inexpensive, clothes. Clothes are freshly pressed. He's a young man, though, not expensive clothes. Then his wife must press them. Men don't have the talent, and he can't afford a servant to do so.
Very good.
Ian McKellen battling the bees and the wasps and the Grim Reaper as Mr. Holmes. High time now for some raging bull and some cowboy porn, courtesy of the best-selling novelist Nicholas Sparks. Saddle up for the longest ride.
I met a girl.
You meet girls all the time.
No, not like this.
Art student meets bull rider amid the din and the stench of the rodeo ring. But love is a beast. It will throw you and stomp you and defecate on your head. Just look at what happened to Alan Alda's old-timer. He's still bearing the scars and he has a story to tell.
I haven't been able to read these for years.
You want me to read them to you?
Peter, at the risk of getting too serious for a moment, we've all fallen off the bull in our time.
We have.
The trick is, I suppose, to just get back
to
up.
stay on as long as you can. And Nicholas Sparks has stayed on for like 1,000 years. He has been churning out these rom-dram pieces of nonsense since I can remember. I remember Message in a Bottle with Kevin Costner. And it's the same thing over and over again. The great man has one trope, the idea of a kind of manuscript hoard, like a notebook or love letters or this Message in a Bottle, which discloses a lovely old world of old people. And to quote Alicia Silverstone in Clueless, old people can be so cute, especially when they fall in love. Their lovely old world of their uxorious passion, their monogamous passion, and that is brought into unsubtle parallel with young folks in their late teens and early 20s. It's almost like
they have kind of lessons to teach
They're
the
lessons
young
to teach,
folks.
very important lessons to teach, and maybe even learn themselves from the lovely young people. Over and over again, it is contrived, almost literally meaningless nonsense. She's the art student. She meets cutes with him. He's a rodeo rider or something. She and he kind of meet this old guy who, when he was a young man, just before the Second World War, had a lovely affair relationship with his wife. He's got a stash of love letters, apparently written to his wife on the day when the day's events happened, because they stitch in flashbacks based on these letters. So the letters have apparently been written to his wife, from whom he's not been parted, all about those days' events written on the day to his wife, with whom he lives. Go figure. I don't know. And there is the most bizarrely contrived thing about her being an art historian and being an art lover. And
which is like Chekhov's gun on the mantelpiece.
Exactly,
isn't it? You
yes.
know it's going to come in there
It's going to
somewhere.
go off in somebody's face, basically, ours. And then they try to adopt some kid, some hillbilly's kid, and that goes wrong. And it's all happening in flashback, and then their relationship is in deep trouble because of problems with committing. And it finishes with the most outrageous kind of, like a Victorian novel, it finishes with a legacy, but it finishes with an outrageous twist. I mean, it's so ridiculous, you almost have to laugh. But it's there's something almost scary about the number of books like this that Nicholas Sparks seems to have written. I mean, there seems to be literally no end to them. Every few years or every year, another story comes out, set in the wholesome Midwest or the wholesome South. A father or grandfatherly figure coming into contact with some young folks who've been thrown together by fate, torn apart by fate, put back together again by fate. I literally can't bear it anymore. I can't take it.
But he's laughing all the way to the bank.
Oh, he is. I mean,
and look at us.
And look at us. Yes, exactly. We're poor, but we're happy.
Right, the goal is pretty simple. All you gotta do is hang on for 8 seconds.
Wow. There's nothing to it.
Life, of course, is the longest ride, and the longest ride may be the second longest. And it turns out that making movies is a bit like love and bulls, because back in 2008, director David O. Russell began work on a film called Nailed. 7 years later, here it is, rechristened as Accidental Love and credited to a man called Stephen Green. Clearly something has gone terribly wrong.
Okay, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna take these tweezers and I'm gonna find that nail. Oh.
Jessica Biel is Alice, a small-town waitress who gets a nail shot into her head. This could happen to anyone, except that Alice has no health insurance, and the nail has damaged her brain and altered her personality. She's changing, she's growing, and she's off to Washington, D.C. to fight for her rights as an average American with a nail in her head.
Oh, dear. I definitely think we inspire each other.
Henry, there's something compelling about watching a film with such a troubled production history as this. Is that quite enough, though, to sustain your interest?
Oh, absolutely not. But for half an hour, it's probably worth the ticket price, because we spend so long talking about the art of film and the plot of film and how these things come together and the finished shiny product. And for once, we finally get to see inside the sausage factory, and it's disgusting. it's a real zany mess, but it's kind of compelling as well, right? To see all this meat mint stuff and pushed into casings.
Yeah.
I'll stop there. Yeah, it's so weird, this film. It feels like O. Russell had the raw material for something that could maybe have been interesting. There's sort of an element of an Obama-aid satire-ish there. It's like his other films, it's about America rather than about the small people in America and the broader sense that their country creates the people. But it's just been turned on its head by a wacky soundtrack, which reminds me a little bit of my ex-girlfriend's mum used to watch Nigerian soap operas, and whenever anything dramatic happens in a Nigerian soap opera, there's a noise. And here it's almost like they have a wah, 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 wah on the soundtrack. It's really odd.
Yeah, it was like it was kind of bleeding through from another cinema.
Totally bizarre.
It's weird sitcom jauntiness.
Yeah, it's utterly bizarre.
There's a problem with doing a kind of grotesque, exaggerated, heightened satire, though, isn't it? It's a difficult act to pull off, even if O. Russell was able to do the film that he wanted to.
Even if you know what you're doing, it's very, very difficult. I mean, this is so strange. I mean, it would be interesting if you showed it to somebody and didn't tell them the backstory and just wonder what they make of it. I think we've actually seen quite a lot of films like this, just pretty average, perhaps not quite as bizarrely scored, admittedly, but pretty average films. Here, something has gone very badly wrong. It's interesting to know what was it about the script and the project which attracted Russell in the first place. The whole Silver Linings Playbook mental illness thing might have attracted Russell. He might have been interested in the grotesque, the black comic aspect of a heightened sexuality because of a nail in the brain. But all that just goes for nothing. All that aspect, the much more clearly challenging aspect of the film, is just abandoned. That has nothing at all. All you have this very, very unfunny, relentlessly unfunny stuff about Washington, D.C. You know, this real broad kind of, we'll build a military base on the moon and we'll get Girl Scouts to promote it. I mean, it's the sort of thing that would be used in a sort of 1960s satire.
And hell's a poppin'.
Yeah, even then it would be very broad. But now, in the era of Veep, for example, who on earth buys this sort of thing? I mean, how on earth did David O. Russell think it was anything worthwhile in it at all?
We're hitting nail. Okay. You can do this. Come on.
Oh, whoa.
Got it.
Oh, I lost the grip. Oh, come on.
It's been hurt and abused, and it demands your attention. That's David O. Russell's Accidental Love there. Just time now for a few of your questions. Peter and Henry, do you have any cinema-related T-shirts?
I don't really wear T-shirts very much, I have to admit. I had an old Eraserhead T-shirt, which was jet black. Cool, huh? But that's the only one I think I've ever had.
No, I haven't. I kind of want an Accidental Love T-shirt now, just for the hipster cachet in about 20 years' time.
I have a real prejudice against them.
About T-shirts in general?
No,
or
about the
T-shirts?
cinema-related, particularly when you see sort of critics my age and older walking around and you're thinking, on one hand, that's wonderful, they're still in touch with their childhood love of film. And on the other hand, you think, I wonder if they wear like Spider-Man pants.
Yeah.
sleep in a sort of Batmobile.
Well, now you mention it, Xan.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Next question. Is the revival of the golden oldie franchise like Star Wars and Jurassic Park indicative of a nostalgia for a better era of cinema?
I don't think it's about yearning for a better era. It's about a yearning for cash and a continuous cash cow which can be made to yield profits at all times.
On a studio level, it's about risk aversion. It's about not wanting to back a horse that might fail to create a new franchise. It's about putting your stock in things that are almost guaranteed winners, and that's dismaying. It's terrible for anyone who wants to see innovation in cinema and interesting plot ideas and stories come forward. At the same time, there's room within these franchises for directors like Josh Trank, who was going to do the Star Wars film, to show off their wares and try and make something interesting within a world that is already created for them.
If you think, oh my God, where are all the interesting films? The interesting films are out there, but you've just got to make more of an effort to see them. And now that there is now video on demand and streaming and Netflix and DVDs, actually the inaccessibility of those independent movies is much less of a problem than it was. And it's up to all of us, I suppose, it's up to the critics to say, yeah, sure, there are all these dumb superhero movies and you know, goodness, some of them are quite fun. But anyway, here we are. There are, in fact, interesting independent movies and we have to seek them out.
And that's our cue to end this week's round of adult debate, change back into our Jurassic Park romper suits and return to the playpen where there is jelly for lunch. My thanks to Peter and to Henry. Jelly.